Have you ever stopped to think about why so many people who earn well continue to feel like they're always chasing their own tail? It seems like the money goes in one ear and out the other, as if there's an invisible leak that no one can identify. And deep down, everyone thinks the problem is the salary, that it needs to be higher, that it doesn't keep up with the cost of living, that it's not enough to really live. But what if I told you that, in most cases, the silent villain isn't how much you earn, but the car you chose to finance? Maybe this has already happened to you. Maybe you felt that tightness in your chest when you look at your bank statement and realize that the loan payment is consuming your peace of mind without you even noticing. And it's precisely here that the part nobody talks about begins, because everyone is trapped in the same game, repeating decisions that seem normal, but that, in practice, leave you suffocated before you even have a chance to breathe. The truth is, there's a simple, objective, and brutally honest rule, the 4-20-10 rule, that would serve as a shield to prevent exactly this type of financial collapse. But almost no one follows it, and they don't follow it because it hurts, because it confronts them, because it messes with their ego, their emotions, their desire to deserve something better, even if it ends up costing them their freedom in the coming years. While you hear someone saying, "Everyone has a better car today," what's almost never said is the silent price behind this evolution. High interest rates, long-term financing, slow amortization, hidden fees, and an entire life organized around keeping the car running, and the debt too. Perhaps you've experienced that feeling of pride when you picked up the keys to your financed car, only to have that nagging thought come days later. Why am I still struggling financially if I'm earning more than before? This silent discomfort is more common than it seems. Thousands of people live stressed, irritated, with a constant feeling of financial suffocation, but believe it's just part of adult life. Most never realize they're paying dearly not for freedom, but for imprisonment, a financed prison, for 60, 72, or 84 months. And this is where the 4-20-10 rule comes in as an uncomfortable truth. It doesn't exist to limit you. It exists to protect you from choices that seem harmless, but drain your energy, your budget, and your growth potential. Stay with me until the end, because what you're about to discover might surprise you. When people ignore this rule, they're not ignoring a calculation. They're ignoring a warning that if you don't have a 20% down payment, maybe it's not the right time. That if you need 4, 5, 6 years to pay it off, maybe this car doesn't fit into your life. That if the monthly payments, plus the car costs, exceed 10% of your income, you're trading freedom for appearances. All of this is hard to hear. I know, but that's how the game of personal finance and consumer decisions works. A game in which most people are losing precisely because nobody wants to face this hidden truth. And it's not about humiliating anyone, much less about telling you what you should or shouldn't have. The point is to understand the logic behind the choices that leave you suffocated, while you believe you're just taking it one step up. It's about identifying the hidden financial traps that prevent you from breathing, from investing, from taking advantage of real opportunities. And above all, it's about understanding how the 24-10 rule can be the turning point between a tight life and a life with room, with lightness, with freedom. What we're going to explore now gets straight to the point and might explain why you feel this weight, even when you're doing everything right. Now I want to delve even deeper into this. And when we begin to see these invisible gears that shape our choices, something inside us changes. It's almost as if a penny slowly drops, revealing that what seemed normal may never have truly been normal. And as you absorb all of this, perhaps some part of your own story is flashing through your mind. A loan that put you in a tight spot, a car that became a burden, a decision that seemed right, but later exacted a high price. If this topic resonates with you, leave a comment below about what has touched you the most so far. This exchange is powerful because when you talk about your experience, you not only organize your own thoughts, but also help other people who may be going through the exact same thing without realizing it. And since we're having such a candid conversation, I need to tell you something with the same transparency I use when talking about finances. Every comment, every like, every person who subscribes to the channel makes a real difference in the reach of this content. It's not just engagement, it's what allows this message to reach more people who are being suffocated by financial choices that could be avoided. Your participation here is what makes this channel grow and reach more people with this type of content. People who may be living paycheck to paycheck today, feeling alone, unaware that there's an easier path. So, if you feel this conversation is opening a window, a clearing, take the opportunity to like the video now. This shows YouTube that this topic matters. And if you want to continue following this journey of financial awareness, freedom, and smarter decisions, subscribe to the channel. That's how you ensure we'll walk together in the next steps, in the next truth that nobody talks about, in the next revelations that can completely change the way you deal with money. And while you do this, keep that reflection alive within you, because what comes next delves even deeper into this point that perhaps you've never stopped to fully analyze. This is where many people begin to realize that the problem was never just buying a car. In theory, a car is just a means of transportation, but in practice it becomes one of the heaviest financial burdens someone can carry. And the most curious, or frightening thing, is that this doesn't happen all at once. It's not a direct shock. It's a silent, almost imperceptible process, a slow erosion of your freedom. It all starts with that seductive idea that you deserve better, that after so much effort, so much work, so much emotional strain, you have the right to know. Drive something more comfortable, more beautiful, more modern. And this feeling of entitlement, while legitimate, often opens the door to decisions that carry a much greater impact than it seems at first glance. Aggressive depreciation is the first invisible blow. The moment you drive the car off the lot, it's already worth less and continues to lose value month after month while your debt remains intact, slowly growing with never-ending interest. It's like trying to climb an escalator in reverse. You might move forward a little, but you feel something always pulling you back. But you only realize this feeling years later when you look at your outstanding balance and wonder why it barely decreased. It's at this point that many people begin to feel that silent frustration that no one talks about, but that weighs on them every day. And that's just the beginning. Soon after comes long-term financing, the kind that seems harmless because it leaves the monthly payment tiny, fitting perfectly in your budget. But this apparent ease masks a hidden truth. The longer the term, the higher the real cost. It's like trading freedom for anesthesia. You don't feel pain now, but you'll pay dearly for it behind the scenes, for years. Exorbitant interest rates accumulate, turning an ordinary car into a black hole of money. Suddenly, you're trapped in a commitment that limits you, paralyzes you, and prevents you from taking advantage of opportunities that come your way. And then come the ongoing expenses, the ones that never appear in advertisements. Insurance, vehicle tax, preventive maintenance, corrective maintenance. Because a car never breaks down when you're prepared. Not to mention the emotional upgrades. It's a familiar cycle. You trade in your car for a slightly better one, then add a new accessory, then think about a more up-to-date model, because everyone else has already traded in theirs too. And before you know it, you're working to maintain a lifestyle that doesn't move you forward, it just keeps you moving, but without real progress. It's like running on a treadmill thinking you're crossing the city. This cycle, car, long-term financing, high interest rates, insurance, vehicle tax, maintenance, and upgrades, swallows up the budget so naturally that almost no one notices. It's a type of financial entrapment so common that it's become a social norm. But deep down, most people live with a strangled budget not because they spend on nonsense, but because they've tied a large part of their income to an object that loses value daily. And the saddest part is that many people only understand this when they're already tired, stressed, questioning why they can't save money, why they can't invest, why they always seem to be behind in their own lives. When we look at this scenario honestly, we realize that a profound transformation is taking place. It's as if, for the first time, the person sees behind the scenes of their own decisions. This changes their mindset, changes how they interpret their own effort, even how they dream. And when this awareness hits, it comes with force, sometimes with guilt, sometimes with relief, but always with important revelations about how to conduct the journey from here on out. Now I want to delve even deeper into this subject, because there's a point that almost no one notices, and that explains why this cycle becomes so difficult to break. Comment below. That makes sense to me. When we arrive at the 2410 rule, it's like finally turning on the light in a room that's always been messy, but that you've been walking through in the dark, pretending nothing was out of place. Suddenly, everything becomes clear. The 20-4-10 rule isn't a whim. It's not an invention to make life difficult, and much less a way to humiliate those trying to improve their lives. It is, in fact, a protection, a filter that separates immediate desire from mature decision-making. And that's exactly why it hurts so much. Because when you put this rule on the table, it dismantles some illusions that we learn to cultivate from an early age. Like the idea that simply wanting something badly is enough for it to make sense in our financial reality. The logic is straightforward, almost mathematical, but it carries a deep emotional weight. The first part is the 20, having at least a 20% down payment. This in itself already has a huge impact, because if you don't have that down payment, the silent message behind it isn't, "You'll never own a car," but rather, "Maybe now isn't the right time." It's a hidden truth that few admit, but it brings about an important shift in mindset. It forces you to face the magnitude of the commitment you're making and prevents you from entering into a financing deal that starts off on the wrong foot from day one. Then comes number 4, maximum financing for 4 years. And here, many people already feel the impact, because banks, dealerships, and even some people around you keep repeating that financing over 72 or 84 months is normal, smart, the easiest way to pay. But that's a comfortable illusion. The longer the term, the more the debt traps you, exhausts you, ties you up in a cycle that takes away your room for maneuver. It's like stretching an elastic band to its limit. It seems like everything is fine, but any unforeseen event breaks everything. The 4-year rule was created precisely to avoid this continuous wear and tear. It acts as an emotional and financial limit, preventing you from accepting an agreement that only seems good on the surface. And finally, there's number 10. The value of the installments added to the total cost of the car cannot exceed 10% of your monthly income. This is where the truth becomes even clearer. If the car is consuming more than that, you're not buying freedom, you're buying tension, stress, and worry. And it's amazing how many people believe that living paycheck to paycheck is just a phase, when often it's the direct consequence of a decision made without this filter. The impact of this rule lies precisely in revealing this invisible backstage of choices, showing that when the numbers exceed this limit, the emotional toll begins to arrive, and it's rarely small. That's why the 4-20-10 rule is unpopular. It doesn't allow you to romanticize the process. It doesn't care about appearance, status, social comparison, or that pleasant feeling of finally driving something better. It only cares about one thing: preserving your financial health and quality of life in the long term. And even though it's hard to hear phrases like, "If you need to finance for 7 years, maybe this car isn't for you right now," there's a hidden liberation in it. It's like taking a weight off your chest. It's taking control of your own decisions. It's realizing that the financial journey doesn't have to be a minefield where every step can cost you years of effort. When you look at the 4-20-10 rule honestly, you begin to understand that it functions like a map. It shows you the limits, guides your choices, and protects you from impulses that seem good at the moment but create a negative impact in the future. And it is precisely in this clarity that the most valuable revelation lies. Financial freedom is often born from the decisions you don't make, from the loans you refuse, the deadlines you don't accept, the patience you choose to cultivate so as not to transform a legitimate desire into a long prison. Now, I want to delve even deeper into this subject, because there's a detail within this rule that many people have never noticed. And it's what separates those who live trapped in debt from those who truly manage to build a lighter, more stable, and purposeful life. Write this down. I'm on this journey too. When we talk about ignoring the 4-20-10 rule, we're not just talking about numbers, percentages, or cold calculations. We're talking about real life, emotional impact, sleepless nights trying to understand why money disappears, even when your salary has increased. It's amazing how a decision that seems small at first, a slightly longer loan term, a payment that fits your budget, a car you swear you deserve, can trigger a whole sequence of consequences that no one tells you about. And it's precisely at this point that many people begin to realize the weight of this choice. Because when the car exceeds that healthy limit, it ceases to be a means of transportation and becomes a silent thief of your freedom. The first effect is immediate and deeply frustrating. There's less money left to invest, not for lack of will, not for lack of awareness, but because the budget is already committed before the month even begins. And when there's no room to invest, there's no room to grow. It's like trying to plant a seed in already occupied soil. No matter how hard you try, nothing flourishes, nothing evolves. And this feeling of stagnation creates enormous emotional strain because you feel like you work, and remain in the same place. Then comes the lack of a safety net for emergencies. And here lies one of the greatest dangers. Because life doesn't ask if you're ready. The car breaks down, you get a flat tire, your insurance premium increases, an unexpected bill appears. And when you're already at your limit, any unforeseen event becomes an avalanche. It's at this moment that choices begin to erode even more of your peace of mind. Loans, maxed out credit cards, installment plans, renegotiations. All of this generates a constant feeling that you're always trying to plug holes with your hands, while others keep opening up around you. And all this tension doesn't just stay in your head. It spills into your home, your conversations, your relationships, your mood. Many of the arguments that happen at home aren't about love, respect, partnership, but about money. Or rather, the lack of it. When the car starts consuming an excessive portion of the income, it also begins to consume the family's peace. Comments that were once lighthearted become accusations. Questions turn into criticisms. Plans become frustrations. All because the margin for error has disappeared. And perhaps the most painful thing to acknowledge is this. Many people who live like this earn well. We're not just talking about low-income people. On the contrary, there's a huge segment of the population that has a good salary but lives broke. Not because you're irresponsible, but because you made financial decisions based on emotion, comparison, and impulse. It's that professional who earns 8, 10, 12,000 a month but can't save 1,000 rials. It's that person who changed cars because everyone was changing and now lives suffocatingly. It's the case of someone who finances for 84 months believing they made a good deal, but spends years repeating the same silent question. How can I earn so well and still live in such hardship? These stories are far more common than you might imagine. And the most interesting, or unsettling thing, is realizing that many of them could have been avoided with a simple limit, a conscious decision, a deeper analysis before signing the contract. Because ignoring the 4-20-10 rule doesn't just steal money. It steals time. It steals opportunities. It steals lightness. It steals the feeling that you have control over your own journey. And when we realize this, we understand that the price isn't just in the installments, but in the accumulated emotional impact over the years. Now I want to delve even deeper into this subject, because there's a hidden layer behind these choices that explains why so many intelligent, hard-working, and well-intentioned people fall into the exact same cycle. And this revelation could completely change how you approach your future decisions. Comment below. That makes sense to me. When that penny drops, something very deep changes inside you. It's as if, suddenly, you see yourself from the outside, realizing that for years you carried a weight you never needed to carry. Liberation doesn't begin when you pay off the car. It begins when you understand the logic behind what held you back. The 24-10 rule, which many see as a limitation, is actually a map to freedom. It doesn't say you can't have a car. It says, don't put the car above your life. And when this hidden truth finally reveals itself, you realize there was always another way. You just lacked the courage to see it. Following this rule has nothing to do with being less, living a mediocre life, or giving up comfort. On the contrary, it's a decision of maturity, of financial awareness, almost a silent revolution in your mindset. It's understanding that there's a huge difference between what you want now and what will make you grow in the coming years. Those who decide to follow the 24-10 rule quickly perceive three sensations that change everything: lightness, room for maneuver, and growth. Lightness, because money ceases to be an enemy. Room for maneuver, because life fits within the budget again. Growth, because when there's no longer debt suffocating you, you finally have space to build something solid. And it's very curious how this transformation happens not only in the wallet, but in the mind. People who previously lived counting the days until their paycheck begin to breathe easier. Stress decreases. The feeling of always owing something to someone disappears. And little by little, a New relationship with one's own money begins to form. It's not about having more or less, but about having control, about looking at one's own decisions with clarity, about realizing that the car, that symbol we so often use to measure progress, should never have had so much power over our lives. This shift in awareness is so powerful because it gives you back something you may not even have realized you'd lost: autonomy. When you understand that you no longer need to work just to pay. Installments, that you no longer need to accept every extra hour, every sacrifice, every hardship, just to maintain a vehicle that loses value daily. Everything takes on a different meaning. It's almost like recovering a forgotten piece of yourself. And this changes your journey, changes your plans, even your dreams. You begin to see opportunities that were previously hidden behind bills. And that's why I always say, following this rule isn't about being poor. It's about being smart. It's about having the courage to make choices that not everyone makes, but that completely transform the course of your life. It's about rejecting the idea that you need to sacrifice your well-being to drive something that will drag you down. It's about protecting your future from decisions that drain your energy and your money. It's about understanding that financial freedom begins with a simple, almost symbolic attitude, not letting a car decide your destiny. And when that awareness sets in, something inside you organizes itself. It's as if the noise diminishes and things finally become clear. Not because life becomes perfect, but because you stop acting on autopilot. You start making choices intentionally, looking at the impact, at the long term, at what really matters. And this is where the journey truly changes. You realize that the first step to building a more stable, lighter, and smarter future doesn't involve making more money. It involves stopping surrendering your freedom to impulsive decisions. Now, I want to delve even deeper into this subject, because there's a detail in this mindset shift that separates those who merely understand the rule from those who truly transform their lives with it. And when you realize this detail, a lot of things will make sense. Write this down: financial lightness. If you've made it this far, you can tell this topic resonated with you in some important place. And I'm truly happy about that, because the intention of this video was never just to explain a rule, but to open up space for a new way of seeing your decisions, your money, and the freedom you deserve. If this content helped you in any way, clarified something that was confusing, or gave you that feeling of, that's exactly what I needed to hear today, consider subscribing to the channel. Here we continue this conversation with depth, sincerity, and that genuine desire to build a lighter and more intelligent life. And if you want to leave a note saying you stayed with me until the end, write it in the comments. I'm with you until the end. This isn't just a sign of your presence. It's proof that you're committed to your own transformation. Furthermore, liking this video now helps it reach other people who might be going through the same struggles you've experienced. It's a simple gesture, but one that has a huge impact. And if you want to continue on this journey, there's a video over here that complements everything we've talked about today. Click on it and continue with me there.